Overwatch is not something I expected to be covering again on this channel, but here we are. For those diehard Karma fans out there, and I know they exist, because out of 6k people, I'm sure at least one person is hyper obsessed that isn't my mum. I'm sure you would know from my previous video where I talked about Overwatch and how it's actually going in a good direction, and I could see a good future for the rest of the game if they executed things well. That video was 8 months ago, oh my god. Well, I take back that statement, so you could consider this video a part 2. I'm not an Overwatch focused channel and I wouldn't want to be, but I'm sure those of you who have kept in the loop with the game's downfall will probably know a lot of these things I'll be talking about today. I do want to stress before I get into this, I'm not some Overwatch scholar, I don't know everything about the game, I'm just a simple video editor wanting to share some opinions on the internet.
You didn't see anything.
Now that that's out of the way, I'll start off with the big thing that came out a couple months after my video got released. In the previous video, I said, I'm excited to see more PvE campaigns we get in the future. Well, oh boy was I wrong. As it turns out, people up top decided to axe the PvE plans entirely. Why? Because it sold terribly. You're telling me a DLC selling for 15 buckaroos for 3 mid to okay PvE levels. The one thing that people were hoping for ever since the announcement trailer
What you looking at?
for Overwatch 9 years ago, back in 2014. You're telling me that undersold after you scammed your players by promising PvE would come out when Overwatch 2 would release and there'd be plenty of replayability thanks to features like skill trees? You know, the Overwatch 2 that released being the exact same game as the first. Except some graphical updates, a new HUD, and what am I forgetting? All right, the introduction of FOMO to Overwatch. CSGO had a better transition into CS2 than Overwatch did into Overwatch 2. One BV comment in the previous video made a good point about PvE, along with some other points talking about my video. I honestly think the real reason PvE was cancelled was because it just isn't fun to fight bots with Overwatch's dynamic abilities. I don't think anyone can honestly tell me those bots are as fun as a real player. I'd be so pissed if we went down 1 or 2 heroes a year to burn money on PvE. The tower defense horde mode they announced at BlizzCon is the best middle ground in my opinion. Now, I do think there was a lot of potential, but they flunked it real hard.
This guy stinks!
And look, let's say if this was an indie game, no, not even that. Let's say this was any other franchise, it'd probably be alright. 3 PvE levels for only $15. That doesn't sound too bad realistically, depending on the execution of course. But in Overwatch's case, they had supposedly been working on this for years and made lots of false promises.
For the PvP live service, for certain seasons, you're also going to get some PvE maps. There's going to be content for you to immerse yourself in and continue to play over and over again.
So understandably, there was a lot of negative feedback. I've said something similar to this in the last video, but don't go after the developers for this. As I've said before, a lot of these decisions come down from out of touch rich bastards who own the company. It sucks, but at the end of the day, all they care about is making a profit. I had my own game theory that they knew if they underperformed on the PvE, they could use it as an excuse to cut it entirely, as they knew it wouldn't make much money as normal PvP. With it being such a terrible turnover, they could cull their team, cut back on costs, and focus on making the toxic competitive shooter more toxic and fill it with Fortnite Battle Pass. Obviously, I have nothing to prove that, but with how greedy a lot of companies have been recently, I wouldn't put it past them. But that's just the theory.
A game theory.
Still talking about the PvE cancellation, did you know that according to this article, Blizzard developer salaries are nowhere near as high as other competitors? Instead, they have a lucrative deal inside of their compensation package. This is something called profit sharing, and on paper, it doesn't sound too bad. Originally, you would get a percentage bonus based on the performance of all of Blizzard's games. One in August for the first half of the year and one in March for the second half of the previous year. However, that policy changed in 2023 as there was a long and hard-fought battle between Blizzard and their parent company, Activision Blizzard. This battle was led by Mike Morhaime and J. Allen Brack, who had fought for employee bonuses as their competitor, everyone's favorite now ex-CEO, Bobby Kotick, thought it would be a better idea to only give bonuses based on the performance of the games the developers are working on. Mike and Alan believe that company-wide would be better, as if you give bonuses based on the financial performance of a specific game, developers would rather work on those games instead of branching out and experimenting with newer ideas, which basically ruins the creativity of game dev. However, Bobby argued that the developers behind the most, and I quote, lucrative products should be rewarded the most, and sadly in the end his decision went through. Now, think what you want, want, but the way I see it, Mike and Alan are right. Imagine you're in this situation. You're given the choice to work on a cash cow money-making game, and you're guaranteed to earn a big bonus, basically earning you a nice and safe spot to make plenty of money. Or you can work on one of their smaller IPs, or even a new and upcoming IP, to help it grow and become a big money maker too. However, your chance of getting a big bonus basically drops to like 2%. And if that IP flops, you're either going to get moved or worse, let go. Which would you go for? Hopefully that puts it into perspective. Now you can probably imagine how the Overwatch developers felt when their game basically got ridiculed because those decisions from people up top decided to ruin the game. To quote a paragraph from this article I've been referencing, in August 2023, Overwatch 2 team members were told that based on the game's poor financial performance in the first half of the year, they shouldn't have received anything. According to people familiar with what happened who asked to not be named discussing non-public information, but that the company would cover some of their bonuses to make up for the shortfall. Then, earlier this month, the company informed developers that they would receive a stunning 0% of their bonus targets. Just as a little note, the article I'm quoting from is Blizzard makes big changes as Overwatch 2 struggles by Jason Schreier, I don't know how to pronounce that name,
Shreya.
on Bloomberg.com, just in case you wanted to read it for yourself. So, what's the current state of Overwatch then? Well, it's a mixed bag really. The game is still overwhelmingly negative on Steam after that huge review bomb they had, along with all the payment issues they had involving PvE previously.
Overwatch 2's Steam launch was an absolute disaster. Not only does it have a negative rating since people were finally able to post their thoughts publicly, but the DLC is an absolute disaster. People have paid for the Invasion bundle, which is access to the PvE that has been hyped up this whole time, and unfortunately aren't able to play it on Steam. They spent $40 or $20 and just can't play the game. It is an absolute fail launch. And it's not just some people paid for it, didn't get it. No one on Steam got it that paid for it. Apparently, when you buy it on Steam, you just don't get anything because it just didn't work.
And since the last video, they've managed to kind of fix one of the criticisms I mentioned, which was FOMO. When they introduced the Battle Pass into Overwatch, they also introduced Mythic skins, which would be the final reward of the Battle Pass. But now they've made a Mythic shop, which is where you can earn Mythic coins in the Battle Pass and use them to buy any Mythic skin from previous and future Battle Passes. This is a better step compared to before. However, all of the stuff inside the Battle Pass is never obtainable again after that season ends. And I know I said before, Overwatch probably has some of the best cosmetics in the games industry, but you can tell they're running out of ideas when this is one of the items in the current Battle Pass.
This is like fuck shit.
So maybe it's for the best we never see it again. Now, speaking of Battle Passes, a lot of games do it differently, and I've only seen 2 games do it in a fairly healthy way for them and the player. The first one is a fairly small game. It's an indie game called Skur Ritual. To summarize this game, it's sort of like Call of Duty Zombies back in the old days, but mixed in with a few modern concepts. You can tell when playing the game, COD Zombies was a huge inspiration for the developers, but the Battle Pass is done in an interesting way. Along with that, I don't think I've actually seen any indie games do a Battle Pass, so this could be a first. You're able to pay for the Battle Pass as if it's a DLC, and the Battle Pass lasts forever. So you can grind your way to the end of it, or you can buy their alternative Battle Pass DLCs and set those as your active Battle Pass to grind in, basically removing the entire concept of FOMO in the game, as all items are accessible permanently. Yeah, with a little bit of money, but at least you're not just buying your way to the end. And on top of that, the developers also get some sort of compensation too. If you want to see more on Skur Ritual, I play that over on my second channel, so Go check that out. Now, the other example is a very well-known game. You may have heard of it. Helldivers 2. This game is honestly great. Yeah, there's been a little bit of controversy here and there, thanks to PlayStation no less, but the devs clearly care about the game and their player base way more than their publisher does. And the way they execute their Battle Pass is similar to Skur Ritual, in a sense that the Battle Pass is permanent, and they do have different versions plus a free version, but instead of activating a certain Battle Pass you want to progress in, you can get credits for finishing missions and use them in any of the Battle Passes to progress through them, encouraging replayability and not pushing any FOMO ideals, which is great. On top of that as well, the items in the Helldivers 2 Battle Pass are actually usable and not just cosmetics. Now, going back onto Overwatch, they also got quite a lot of flack for their item shop. One thing in particular was the bundles they would sell. A lot of exclusive skins would only be sold in bundles for $30 to $40, and there was no way to obtain the skin through in-game currency, nor could you buy it separately from all the keychains, sprays, and other goodies. Realistically, if you don't care about cosmetics, then this would be none of your concern. But a lot of the people who play these types of games love to have some kind of item to flex on other players to show they're better than you. And then they end up spending more money on these items, which just becomes an addiction they won't admit. Now, originally, I was never going to make this video, but when some friends convinced me to boot up the game after I was like 4 months clean, I got a pop-up for something new, a Reinhardt weapon skin. This was the first time I'd ever seen a weapon skin being in Overwatch. So I clicked the prompt and it took me to, guess what? A bundle for a weapon skin. That was $40. What other goodies did they put in that bundle? 2,000 Overwatch coins and 20 Battle Pass tier skips. Seeing that and no other option to get the skin separately is basically what convinced me to finally make this part 2 to the previous video. I think it's just insane trying to sell a weapon skin for $40. But then again, look at Valorant. After about 2 days, when I looked further into this, I noticed you were able to buy the weapon skin in the Mythic shop using those Mythic coins I mentioned earlier, so at least they do offer a way to get the skin without dropping $40. However, the price of this weapon skin is the exact same as buying a normal Mythic skin. Why though? Those skins come with unique weapons too, so why is a separate weapon skin the same price as an entire character skin? And keep in mind, these Mythic skins have 4 levels. Once you buy the skin for 50 Mythic coins, you can level up using 10 additional Mythic coins, costing a total of 80 coins. And you can only get 80 of those coins per Battle Pass season. So if you wanted to max out the Reinhardt hammer, that would take all of your Mythic coins from this season, or you could, just drop $40. Something I noticed too was when you go into the shop, the Reinhardt bundle is the first thing you see, and they try to make sure the whole buy using Mythic coins is as hidden as possible, so you're more inclined to think you can only obtain the skin through buying it. Real sneaky Blizzard. The actual design of the hammer, I'm not gonna dog on, as the hammer itself and the effects that come with it are pretty slick, but I just think it's terrible how they're just trying to suck as much money out of you as possible. My actual thoughts on the core game remains fairly the same. The actual gameplay, the character dynamics and interactions, all of that, I think it's still fun to play. So if you can enjoy a video game and not care about cosmetics, you are one very far and few between, but I have a lot of respect for you. Oh, and custom games are still my favorite game mode. I'm not changing my mind on that. So what's the moral of the story? Blizzard is a terrible company. Don't work there if you have other options. Overwatch itself, the characters are still really fun along with the core gameplay, but the shop is still predatory, so keep your wallet safe. Oh, and like, subscribe, and comment what movie video game adaptation is your favorite and why. Check out my second channel, follow my socials, and finally, I have a new actual video coming at some point. I just wanted to get this out of the way before I go into a new format of content. Bye bye!